Austria is back in lockdown. It's trying to control a rising COVID infection rate. And with new restrictions coming in a number of European countries, we've seen protests in Belgium, Austria, Italy, the Netherlands, Switzerland and Croatia. Once again, we're seeing the tension between public health measures and what some people see as a constraint on their personal freedoms. Well, let's begin in Austria. Tens of thousands of people protested in the capital, Vienna, in response to this new lockdown and in response to plans that will make vaccination a legal requirement from February next year. Here's the president of the Austrian Medical Association on the decision to do this.
From February the 1st on, vaccination will be mandatory in our country because it's necessary to increase the vaccination rate. Otherwise, there's no chance to stop this pandemic in our country.
The BBC's Bethany has spoken exclusively to the Austrian Chancellor on Monday about the plan to make vaccines compulsory.
Many countries have mandatory vaccinations on different types of vaccines. Other countries have installed it for COVID-19 vaccines for certain areas. Simply, we have 66% of the population so far which has got the vaccine. This is too little, too late. And we want to break out of this vicious circle of virus waves and discussions about lockdowns. And the only way, the only exit ticket we have is the vaccine.
Are compulsory vaccinations actually legal?
Yes, it is legal. We had obligatory vaccinations already in the past on different, illness. And so this is not a new legal instrument we're installing. And I'm sorry to say that we have to go this way. I'd rather have it other way. And we have done 10 months of campaigning, of trying to persuade people, but still we have a certain share, nearly 1/3 of the population, which is hesitant.
This policy will make Austria the first country in Europe to impose mandatory vaccinations. Next we turn to Belgium. It has one of the highest vaccination rates in Europe. Almost 75% of people are double jabbed, but cases are still rising and restrictions are being reimposed. This was Brussels on Sunday, as the latest raft of COVID measures came into effect over the weekend. They include compulsory mask wearing for anyone aged 10 and over for indoor and some outdoor activities, as well as making home working mandatory 4 days a week. Now, it's estimated around 35,000 people took part in what was initially a peaceful demonstration. Here are some of them.
We know that the virus is there, but we leave it to people to decide whether or not to be vaccinated.
I came to give my opinion about freedom of expression and individual choice, and really to be able to respect everyone's choices.
Later that same day, the demonstration turned violent. Police used water cannons and tear gas to control the crowd. And this is the aftermath on Monday. Burnt debris and damaged pavements among the damage. This is Belgium's Prime Minister.
Of course, we are a free country, where thoughts can be free, where we have, of course, the right to demonstrate. But if a demonstration like this ends in a wave of violence, it is unacceptable. And it's certainly unacceptable if this wave of violence is directed against the police.
And if that's in Belgium, in the Netherlands, there was the worst violence of the weekend. These pictures are from Rotterdam, where police shot live rounds towards the crowds on Sunday. Elsewhere, we saw bicycles being torched in The Hague. Some suspect that organised criminals are behind the violence. Here's the Dutch Justice Minister.
These are not demonstrations. These are attacks on police and firefighters. More than 50 arrests have been made and many more will follow.
A number of factors are behind the unrest there. The BBC's Anna Holligan has more from The Hague.
A lot of this was in response to a fireworks ban, a New Year's Eve fireworks ban, ironically, that was announced on Friday, but that's in combination with the partial lockdown introduced here last weekend, so bars, restaurants have to close by 8 p.m, plus a fear that the COVID restrictions could be about to get tighter and the freedom of the unvaccinated, which is about 16% of Dutch adults, could be about to be limited even further.
There were more protests elsewhere as well. On Sunday, thousands of people marched in the capital of Croatia, opposing mandatory vaccinations for public sector workers. And then this was Italy on Saturday. Thousands more gathering in Rome to oppose Green Pass certificates. These are certificates that show the holder has either been vaccinated, tested negative, or recovered from COVID-19. Without one, people will not be able to access workplaces, leisure venues, and public transport. The factors behind the protests are specific to each country, But there's a common thread of disagreement about the role of governments. Mandates, particularly vaccine mandates planned in Austria, are particularly contentious. And there's even disagreement among scientists. Here's one advisor to the British government.
I'm personally against mandatory vaccination. I think the answer is education and making sure that the correct messages get out.
The professor there mentioned correct information, something the pandemic has shown is just how easily incorrect information can spread. Here's the professor again.
It's so regrettable that there's so much misinformation around. I think it's important for the future that we understand how this has happened, that misinformation has got such a grip of such a sector of society.
The issue of vaccine mandates is also contentious in Germany. It's facing rising infection rates, and the country's health minister says he's against compulsory vaccinations. But he has this warning for those who won't get vaccinated.
Probably by the end of this winter, as is sometimes cynically said, pretty much everyone in Germany will be vaccinated, recovered or dead.
Well, let's go back to Austria and its capital, Vienna, and the BBC's Bethany Bell.
We're right in the heart of Vienna. Normally this street would be packed with people, especially in the run-up to Christmas. As you can see, there are just a few people going out for a walk or returning home from work. There really is the sense that people are locking down, a sense of frustration from some people, a sense of anger with others, or resignation, even some relief. Some people have said that it was high time that the government took this step because the coronavirus cases have just soared in recent days.
And Bethany, do we know how long the lockdown will go on for?
Well, the government has said it will go on for 20 days. It will be reassessed after 10 days. But of course, everything depends on whether the infections do start to come down. And people are hoping that the Chancellor, who I interviewed today, told me that after that 20 days is up, they are hoping to lift the lockdown for the vaccinated and that they will then be able to go to shops and restaurants as usual. But the big question, of course, though, the divisive element in all of this debate at the moment is precisely what we've been hearing, whether about this proposal for mandatory jabs by February. Opinions here are very split on that. I spoke to one woman today who said it is her right to choose what she puts into her own body.